Firstly, tonight, the Indonesian fishermen who are kept on their boats in Darwin Harbour don't attract much sympathy from Territorians. But it's easy to mix up these Indonesian fishermen whose sole wealth is their flimsy boat with the huge commercial longliners from other Asian countries. The fishermen are held in Darwin without any facilities and with little understanding of what is happening to them. When charges are laid, there is a latent coercion to plead guilty. The whole situation is reminiscent of the way Australia's Indigenous people have been treated in the past. We look at the situation to see if there is a question of human rights on Darwin Harbour.
Australia's northern coastline, tropical waters that hold an abundance of fresh fish and crustaceans, are fishery envied by the world. Illegal fishing is a major problem in these waters. Huge Taiwanese ships plunder the waters, trailing many kilometres of long lines, reducing our fisheries as they have done their own. The coastline has been under attack over the last decade or so. Illegal fishermen, boat people, refugees. So the waters of understanding are muddied. It all gets confusing. Amongst all of this are the Indonesian fishermen. In rickety vessels they have plied southward using the perennial trade winds to fish in what is now the Australian fishing zone for hundreds of years. Today it's illegal, and these fishermen come under Australian law. And when an illegal fishing boat is sighted, decisive action is quick.
We'll then board the vessels, conduct an investigative boarding, and if we believe that they may have a case to answer, we'll then escort or tow the vessels to a port of Darwin or Broome.
If a foreign fishing vessel is found within the AFZ and they have the intent to fish, that is, they have nets, lines, trawls, hooks, equipment on board that can be used for fishing, they can be apprehended and brought back into port for court proceedings.
The Australian fishing zone takes in a huge area of northern waters.
The situation is that right around Australia and also the offshore territories and islands, we have effectively a 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone. That ties in very closely to something which we call the Australian Fisheries Zone, or Fisheries Zone, which we patrol regularly here from Darwin in the patrol boats.
Once apprehended, the boats are either escorted back to an Australian port, usually Darwin or Broome, or sometimes are towed. Towing brings about problems with these sometimes old and frail fishing boats. Elizabeth Morris is a solicitor for the Northern Territory Legal Aid Commission. She's defended many of the illegal fishermen.
It's not uncommon for boats to be sunk on their way into Darwin, and that causes the owner of the boat, and while he knows it's not a very good boat, it's his whole livelihood, and that causes them a great deal of concern that their boat was towed in too fast or was not able to withstand the journey into Darwin.
But on the whole, the Navy handles a very difficult job professionally, and the patrol boats deliver the apprehended vessels and crew to the Australian Fisheries Management Authority in Darwin.
We hand over custody to the vessels, in this case in Darwin, to a civilian contractor who then looks after the vessels and their crew, and the vessels are anchored in Darwin Harbour until their court appearance.
It's after the boats are delivered to Darwin that the trouble appears to start. Imparja Newsreel has received complaints that basic human rights are being breached while these boats are in detention. Claims have been made that the fishermen are held on their sometimes small boats without exercise, that there are no toilet facilities other than over the side, only a short distance from the tourism and restaurant area of Darwin's Wharf Precinct, and that the supply of foodstuffs has at times been inadequate. The civilian contractor that has total control over the lives of the Indonesian fishermen is a business called Barefoot Marine.
The security people are on a contract to AFMA, and of course they supply 24-hour security to maintain that no one enters the quarantine area. Also daily food runs, water runs, like I said, daily exercise.
There has been complaints that have been raised with me in relation to the conditions that they're being kept in, that they've got nothing to do. And in relation to the last lot of boats that were brought into Darwin Harbour, there were certainly complaints that they had not received enough rice being their staple diet, and that they were several days without enough rice for them to eat on the boat.
So just who are the people of Barefoot Marine? Professionals trained to care for the security and well-being of these people? We decided to find out. We approached the quarantine area and were soon challenged. A person in a wetsuit who described himself as a marine security officer was aggressive. I told him my name and where I was from.
If you came in here, you got the camera pointed, you think you're hot. Now, if you're so hot, give me your names. If you reckon you're in the right.
I've already got your name 3 times.
On his directions, we set course straight for the East Arm boat ramp. We travelled about half a kilometre, and this supposed marine security officer chased us down once more, nearly ramming our boat.
Have you got any credentials? Or?
Yeah, well, can I see your credentials?
Yeah,
If you can't show me credentials, we're going to drive away now.
No, you're not.
Hey,
We're not here for meetings, right? The story is we're not here
want-
to
you
run
want-
a half-assed program for bayonets like you to do what you like, right?
So this marine security officer is the front line of Barefoot Marine. How many Indonesian people are they responsible for?
Oh, that can vary. Probably you can get up around the 100 or so.
Barefoot Marine has had the security contract since 1988. Just what training does AFMA require of these security people?
First aid's important, and there's numerous other things, but boat drivers' tickets. So basically, they're screened by the Barefoot, or whoever the company is.
These timbers can be up to 1,000 years old. These boats can be a family's whole livelihood for generations. No one's saying illegal fishing is okay, but sometimes you wonder if consideration is given to the harshness of the penalty of taking away a whole family's source of income. So we have a group of up to 100 Indigenous Indonesians on Darwin Harbour, not under arrest, but unable to leave their boats.
If we had a larger area, by all means, that'd probably be nice. But unfortunately, the masters and crews tend to, they want to stay on their vessels. They don't want to leave their vessels because they're not quite sure what's going to happen to them. But,
In almost all cases, the boats are forfeited. The fishermen are in the wrong, there's no doubt of that. We have our territorial waters, our precious resources, and we must protect them. But if Australia is going to hold its head high in the international community, if we are to be in a position to be critical of human rights issues in other countries, then we have to be squeaky clean at home, and that's not the case in Darwin Harbour.
It's a test of our system and the justice of our system as to how fairly we deal with them and how we allow the system to let them enter the pleas of guilty or not guilty as is their right to, even though they're outsiders of our system. It's our system's responsibility to treat them fairly.
AFMA needs to take responsibility for the security and welfare of these detainees. Security personnel need to be fully trained to handle the detainees and the public.
Going directly to the ramp. What's the problem?
If conditions do become worse out at the quarantine buoy and that careful supervision in relation to their conditions out there isn't maintained, then certainly the complaints that we've had already would indicate that there might be some problems in relation to their detention there.